the train traffic here. Will it go? Yes or no? Oh, you're not going to go around that guy.
Embarrassment and where sometimes you need to bring an A here and there, because we're not in a moment that any of the framers or any of the folks that support and celebrate good government ever thought we would really be in. Or if they did think we would be in this place, they assumed that the guardrails would be there to kind of protect us. But as we show the images of ICE in outside and covered up, bulletproof gear on or riot gear on, that's not the America that people thought they would be in day to day. I mean, it's one thing to have seen some of this after 9/11 when I was in New York, after, lived in here all my life. So in New York after 9/11, I understand that we would have National Guardsmen and others, on the streets at that moment, but this should not be our day-to-day life. And I think that's what America is waking up to, that this can't be our new normal. And if Gavin Newsom's the one to sort of capture that zeitgeist, capture that sentiment among so many voters who are starting to say, look, I might be libertarian, where I think government shouldn't do too much, but I certainly am not authoritarian, where I want government, with boots on the ground and long guns in our streets saying, trying to dictate our movements and our lifestyle. That's a whole other story. So, it is important, and Alex talked about this. Democrats created a lot of rules which they try to abide by, good government rules, things that, ways that we acknowledge things should be. But we're not anywhere near that anymore. And as I always said, there was a time where if they go low, we go high mattered. What matters is someone who fights. What matters is someone that stands up for the most vulnerable. Because when you're on the streets of Washington, D.C., and you're seeing people who are unhoused, it's not necessarily their fault. It could be the system's fault. But what Donald Trump is saying is that no, it's their fault. We've moralized work in this country, and that goes back to our puritanical roots. But what we've also done is adopted this criminalization of people who are poor, people who are unhoused, folks that may not, may have fallen through the system, and we blame them. And I think that's the one thing that, if you're a Democrat, if you're Gavin Newsom or anybody else, don't fall for the bait that the Republicans are blaming the individuals for their situation. We have to actually look at the structural problems. We have to look at the people in charge who should have done more. And I'll just end at this point. If you think about that Bitcoin event that Donald Trump had, it was a $148 million event. Suppose he had taken all of those people who gave to him and gave to that cryptocurrency and said, you know what, we want to help solve the problem of homelessness and poverty in Washington, D.C., and contribute that $148 million to the ground. What would that have done? What difference would that have made? They could have done a press conference and ribbon cutting to figure out affordable housing in that one city, but they chose not to do that. They chose to invest in him.
But, I mean, Basil, have you met the Republican Party? I mean, they would never do that. And I mean, I guess
absolutely right.
They would never do that. I mean, that would never be an idea that anybody in today's Republican Party would ever have. They don't believe
absolutely right.
They don't believe in lifting up others. They don't even believe in staying true to their own word. I mean, they were never pro-Russia or pro-tariff, and they're now all for those things. But I want to push back respectfully to you on one thing, Basil. I mean, we go high when they go low was an elegant line and a masterful speech. But I don't even know that Michelle Obama meant it to be a mission statement for the party. It is now something that Democratic voters hold against their politicians. When you look at the 63% disapproval rating for Democrats, the Democrats in that 63% are mad that they don't fight. And I wonder what you make or what you instruct about this hunger among the Democratic base for Democratic politicians who fight.
Yeah, you might be right. It may not have been a mission statement per se, but I do think it was a moment where a lot of people said, a lot of maybe elected officials, if not the actual grassroots, said, you know what, we're better than we're better than this. We should aspire to more. And maybe that's the right sort of language, that there was a moment when we talked about hope and aspiration. And I think what's different now is we can't, hope in many ways and aspiration in many ways is a luxury. We have to deal with what's on the ground right now. We have to deal with the way folks are being targeted right now. And when I started in politics 30 some odd years ago, I remember somebody saying, I'm too poor to be liberal. And what that suggests is that you have to deal with people's reality, and not just their aspiration. And I think what you're suggesting, and I absolutely agree, is that there's a moment for aspiration, but there's also a moment of dealing with reality. And what the Democrats, I think, it's important for them to acknowledge is that today people feel threatened and targeted, and they want a fighter, and you've got to go be in that fight.
Yeah, Alex, you look like you're bursting. What have you got?
Well, yeah, I just wanted to say, I think we should be clear that Republicans and Democrats are doing different things. Gavin Newsom is putting this to a ballot. He's trying to preserve the people's will on this. And he is sunsetting whatever districts emerge by 2030, which is when the next census happens. So, yes, it is definitely and I just outlined the way in which I think it's a newly aggressive posture for Democrats to be touching redistricting like this. But let's not say this is an apples to apples comparison, because what they're doing in Texas is decidedly undemocratic. And to the degree that Gavin Newsom and the California legislature can bring the people in and accommodate to the will of the people and make this only a temporary solve for a nefarious anti-democratic red state activity, that's what they're trying to do. He has gone so far as to say, if Texas doesn't do it, we won't do it either. So let's keep in mind that to the degree that Democrats can stay above, right, the muck of what they are trying to do in Texas and what Trump is trying to do across the country, they are. That doesn't mean they're not going to get dirty in the process, but the provisions that are at the heart of many of the changes that Governor Newsom is suggesting are legitimate. They are at least a hat tip towards actual democracy.
Right, and the voters can reject it. You can't do it unilaterally. All right, no one's going anywhere. I want to bring all of you back on the other side of a break, because there's much more. I want to show you more of the tweets that I think Alex, you referenced. I want to show you more of Governor Newsom, and we're going to try in the break to find out why ICE thought they were there outside of Governor Gavin Newsom's event. We'll talk about whether he can lead more Democrats in other blue states to the same place that we're talking about, and out of political wilderness. Also ahead, the political backlash is becoming fierce to Donald Trump's autocratic moves. Protesters confronting federal agents on the streets of Washington, D.C. And one of the leading voices of the manosphere, podcaster Joe Rogan, once again loudly and publicly criticizing Donald Trump's policies. All of that contributing to what could be a new political low point for Donald Trump. And later in the broadcast, it may be summer recess on Capitol Hill, and Donald Trump is hoping the Jeffrey Epstein story will simply float away. But there are important, vital voices who will not let that happen. Alicia Arden is one of Jeffrey Epstein's earliest accusers. She'll be here on her push to release the Epstein files, and why this story will in no way disappear for her or any of the other victims. All those stories and more when Deadline White House continues after a quick break. Don't go anywhere.
Sail through the heart of historic cities and unforgettable scenery with Viking. Unpack once and get closer to iconic landmarks, local life, and cultural treasures. Because when you experience Europe on a Viking longship, you'll spend less time getting there and more time being there.
To travel anywhere we want to travel. To which the guy says, you're absolutely right, you do. And I actually have the right and authority to stop you. It's called reasonable suspicion. So the reasonable suspicion is that they were in an area where he thought there wasn't much going on. So I guess you can't be there. And then let's also, of course, acknowledge there democracy is supposed to work. It is unfortunately how America works right now. He also said that they aroused suspicion by making several U-turns, which again add this to the list of things that you might have thought that you could do, but you cannot do in America anymore. And in the wake of the incident, which left George terrified and his wife shaking and crying, the couple said that they regretted their votes for Trump, saying, quote, "I feel shame, guilt, and anger at the same time because of the promises that he made, that he lied to us about, going after the worst of the worst. He lied on those, and he stole our vote." And they are 100% right. Jeremy?
I am trying to remember, I told you Jake kind of changed my heart and mind a little bit. Like, well, Sharon, you don't assume that people always are watching the same sources or know the same things. He did tell them, he did lie and say, we're going after the worst of the worst. I'm not celebrating that they're now terrified and regretful. I am celebrating that. Actually, I am celebrating that they're regretful. Because it means they've at least learned something here. You have people whose profile guidance was taken away. This is not the lowest of the low across the world. And still plans to vote for a no liar and, he's got those other crimes, convictions. I don't get it. Sometimes I do believe that people who come from other places that are far more restrictive, I don't know if they put the word far in front of it anymore, are grateful for what they have. And so if you want to restrict them a little bit, it's not like back home. I don't understand some of these people. I can't identify with them, but it's going to get a whole lot worse for more people like that, and let's hope more wake up.
Again, like you had said, like Jay, we can't know what people pay attention to, but like that, if they pay attention at all, which is difficult. It's a luxury to be able to follow the news on a regular basis, let alone where they get their news from. I mean, they can think that they're doing that by watching Fox. I mean, I watch the news, and you learn absolutely nothing because it's just propaganda. It's state-sponsored propaganda. And some people, it takes a certain thing to get them to pay attention. So I try to bear that in mind. Sometimes when I'm not thinking about that, though, I am astounded that a person can have made it to this last election and not know 1,000 times more than you need to know about Donald Trump to know everything you need to know about him as president. But that said, they do regret it. Thankfully, they were eventually released, so that's good. And I'm assuming their political activity in the future will probably be different. But either way, nobody should be treated like this. This is not the way our society is supposed to work. And I think that more and more people are going to realize that. More and more people are going to maybe get uncomfortable with, like, remember when, like, you could, like, be in a city and there were soldiers everywhere? Like, why is that? Like, this is not America, okay? And hopefully people's attachment to the abstract concept of what our society is supposed to be overrules the propaganda and the lies, the fear-mongering by Donald Trump. With that said, we're going to take a short break. Lots more to get to after this.
Of the Democratic Party. I think that this kind of trolling posture, as we've talked about,
Back on the market today, the 8,000 square foot home over on Arden Park Boulevard was built in 1924. Features 7 bedrooms. It also includes a hidden room and 6 bathrooms. Roland and his then fiance renovated it for a DIY network show back in 2015, and then some of their touches are still there, like a piano and a sign for their former record label. The Italian villa style house is listed at $849,000. All right, we are going to wrap up our show with some shots of our Go For It event. We want to say a reminder that you can drop off school supplies right now. That event goes on until 6 o'clock. We would love for you to stop by the Walmart on Dextolina Road in Southgate. Inside Edition coming your way next.
Closed captioning for this program was brought to you by Sam Bernstein Law. Expect more.
Great for over 70 years. And now you can get a gorgeous custom bathroom model at a price you can afford. And the best part, it
communicated properly. To your point, this is a democratic process to save democracy. And it isn't as abstract maybe as what Liz Cheney and former Vice President Kamala Harris, I thought, communicated forcefully and stop after stop, but obviously didn't carry the day in November, this is a very tangible way to be for saving democracy, at least in the state of California.
Yeah, and I think it's coming at a time when the threats against democracy feel pretty tangible, Nicole, right? I mean,
Yes.
the idea that we're talking about the arrival of masked ICE agents at a governor's press conference as if they're stormtroopers, right? I mean, maybe they're conducting a raid, or maybe they're just there to scare the bejesus out of anybody who might be there to support the governor and what he's talking about, you know. And D.C., the seat of the nation's capital, has National Guard troops wandering the streets. I mean, I do think it's about time for Democrats to be for something, given how aggressive and very, very real the threats are. You know, people walk. I mean, I do think this is evidence of how the country is kind of coming apart at the seams, right? All of this should be taken in the grander context of like, wow, here is America now, where a governor who's literally trying to save representative democracy is ringed by armed thugs, effectively, at the direction of the President of the United States, who are there not to, I mean, reasonably do anything. It doesn't appear, or from any reporting I've seen, that there was a tangible threat, but they're there to be an intimidation factor. They're there to scare people. This is, you know, it is high time the alarm bells start ringing, and it is high time Democrats, I would like to see more people, more governors, more people alarmed by what is happening in the streets they call home.
Yeah, I mean, Basil, to that, there are hundreds of Republicans who voted for a very, very, very unpopular bill. So unpopular that the Republicans who voted for it are trying to undo it. Just ask Josh Hawley. I mean, there are very low approval ratings on Donald Trump's economic performance. There are even lower approval ratings on what is yet to come, the tariffs. There are people out shopping. I mean, how do you, I know that since November, a lot of your prescription and a lot of your hope has been in the local, but how do you evaluate what you're seeing out of not just elected Democrats, but the entire pro-democracy side?
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, when I look at Democrats, it is this sort of, I don't want to say hand-wringing, because I don't think that's accurate, but there is this sense of we know we need to do something, but we also don't want
it's going to make an illegal left onto John R. or attempt to. And I just want it to go straight. Stay in this lane. Fuck's sake. probably phantom brake here for no good reason. Oh no, not this time.